And one thing I've learned, if you're going to execute and implement this, is that at first it may be difficult and you may underestimate the time. Again, I'm no different. Like, I go through the same things that you all go through, and I have to find ways to still remain productive and do the things I need to get done. My phone was a serious distraction, so I put it on do not disturb, face down. What I started to then do from there is then I removed my phone. I put my phone actually on my bookcase behind me because I don't feel like having to walk back there to go get it. The end of the year in sight, it brings on a lot of joy. A joy from a well-needed break. Joy from maybe hanging out with family and friends. The joy of watching your favorite sports on television. But for doctoral students like yourself, the breaks also bring on this one important word, and that word is guilt. Guilt that you should be writing when you are resting. Also, the guilt that you should be resting when you're writing. You get into these cycles where it's just like, oh my God, I want to do so much during this break, but I also need well needed rest. How do I manage both? And I know this can be something that's unsettling for you as you're approaching the holiday. So, on today's episode of From ABD to PhD Show, we're going to share and I'm going to give you a simple yet actionable strategy that you can implement to help you take advantage of the holiday break while still making progress with your dissertation. My name is Dr. Ramon Goings, and I'm founder of Done Dissertation, and our whole goal is to help doctoral students write and defend their dissertation in record time. Today's episode is sponsored by the Done Dissertation and Velocity Coaching Program, which has the goal to help you write and defend your dissertation now. So if you're looking to get the support that you need to make sure that you don't enter next holiday season, ABD, make sure that you go to our website at www.velocitydissertation.com, or you can scan the QR code that is here on your screen. So let's get into today's episode, because one thing I know is that as doctoral students, we are trying to manage all of the things. And with that, during the holiday, it can become overwhelming because you're going to holiday events. You know, there's nothing worse than going to a holiday event and then your family and friends who mean well keep asking you, hey, when are you going to finish that book? When are you going to finish that dissertation? Why is it taking you so long? And I know each of you just want to be like, can you leave me alone and let me write? But we just know that those things are happening. And so I want to give you some words of wisdom and some strategy that you can implement to kind of make sense of the break and how to take advantage of it. And so I'm going to bring up my whiteboard just so we can kind of talk through this. And so first, I want to give you some holiday break words to put in your vocabulary that I think are going to be very important for you as you approach this holiday break. And so the first word is clarity. One of the things that you have to have is clarity with this dissertation process. And here's why. Many of us go into our writing sessions with the goal to say, hey, I'm going to write a dissertation chapter, or I'm going to write my dissertation during the break. However, those goals and that goal in particular has no clarity to it. I'd rather you be very specific about what you're going to do and say, you know what, during this holiday break, each day, my goal is to write 250 words towards chapter X. Because what I know is that you can set the mark and you can hit 250 words and then you can stop and come back the next day. But if you just say, I'm going to write my chapter, it's overwhelming. You can feel like, well, where do I even start? Whereas if we have a goal of, let's say, 250 words, we can then create a schedule. We can create a plan. And you need one specific goal that will get you to having the momentum that you need. So you have to have clarity. You have to be clear about what you're trying to do. This is going to be extremely important during the holiday break because you're going to have so many competing interests coming at you. So being clear and having clarity about what you need out of this time is going to be vastly important for you. The next word I want you to consider, and this is a tough one, is boundaries. I know one thing. I work with so many folks in the doctoral programs and also being a faculty member and seeing just the culture of academia generally is like not everyone has boundaries in place. And so when you don't have boundaries, you know, everything can start coming your way. And so in this case, when I'm talking about boundaries, what essentially I'm meaning is that when you have a boundary, that means that you have something that is defining when and how you work. So, and it's also setting the stage of what you will not do. Because most definitely you need to understand is that during the holiday break, your brain needs a chance to recharge. Like we are not machines, even though we feel like we want to be machines. And there's this culture in academia that says like produce, produce, produce. Like we are not machines. It gets to a point where the dissertation process is so cognitively draining that you'll have no more left to give. And if you feel like that right now, it's quite common, to be honest with you. And typically what I do, just a pro tip, is when I have that point where I have no more creative juices left to write, I actually go back and edit and refine. And I work on minor stuff like reference lists and things like that. Things that require not a lot of mental capacity to do. And I just knock those out where I'm still being productive, but I just know I don't have the mental bandwidth to do any high producing tasks like actually writing and composing some of my chapter. But we have to recognize that boundaries are going to be important, because what will happen, especially during a holiday, you'll get people that come to you like, hey man, let's do this, hey, let's do that, and it's okay. But there are going to be times you're going to say, hey, actually I can do that, but I need to finish this first. I remember there were a lot of activities when I was writing my dissertation that I just couldn't do. The example I give all the time, and is when I was actually in my master's program, and one of my cousins was getting married in Mexico, and so we're all in Mexico for the wedding. Everything's going great, and then the night before the wedding, they throw a bachelor party for my cousin. But it just so happened that because of internet connectivity, I had a statistics test that I had to take, and was due on the day of their wedding. And so it's the night before, and I finally have internet access where I can get to doing my test. And they're like, oh, come on, Ramon, like, come out with us. And I'm like, you know what, fellas? I want to come out, but I literally have to do my stats test. And what I did, I was in this villa by myself. Everyone is gone for hours, and I'm in this villa doing a stats test. And I literally fall asleep when they come back, and they tell me about how it went, which was an epic night, but I missed it. But sometimes those sacrifices, because I set a boundary about what I need to do, got me to where I am now, where I was able to get into a doctoral program, finish my doctoral program, and potentially, because I needed that test to do well in that stats class, I might not be here doing these videos talking about all the work we've done at Dissertation if I didn't have that boundary in place back then in my master's program to say, hey, I need to focus on my dissertation right now. Again, this is important because many of us are always the best at boundaries, and what ends up happening is that anyone else's task and their to-do list becomes your to-do list. Whereas you sometimes need to say, no, I can't do that right now. Not that I can't do it at all, I just can't do it right now. And that's just a boundary you're going to have to start putting in place. If this is helpful and resonating with you, let me know in the comments. If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button and notification bell, because we found that like almost 90% of folks who watch these videos are not subscribed. And so make sure you hit the subscribe button on YouTube and the notification bell so that you can know when new episodes come out. So once we get our clarity together, we set our boundaries. Now the last word that we're going to consider, and it's going to be part of your holiday vocabulary, is communication. Communication. You're going to have to, as you're going through this process, communicate what you need. So if you have a boundary that you've put up, because you're clear, right? You're clear. My goal is to finish this chapter by writing 250 words in the next 4 weeks. Cool. We're clear on what the goal is. We're putting boundaries in place. You say, in order to achieve this goal, I'm going to work from, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. each day, and that's it, to then draft my 250 words. Now that you know that, now is the communication part of your strategy, because you're going to have to then communicate what's happening to family and friends. It's nothing worse than just trying to do this stuff yourself and not communicating. Many of the folks I know that watch these videos have families. You might be in a caregiving role. So you have other responsibilities. Like, I'm not saying disregard those at all, but I'm saying there needs to be a conversation that happens in order, again, to establish the boundaries in order to, satisfy and reach the clear goal that you have set for yourself. So now you see how all these things kind of meld together to create a system. It might just be something to say, hey, my plan today and my plan for the next 4 weeks while I'm on break is actually from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. I'm going to write every day. After that, I'm yours, I'm available. Now there's a boundary set in place, and now everyone can, maneuver their schedule around what the boundary is that you have set in place. And this is something that I've come to learn in a particular era, and for me, it's been around email. Like, I used to be someone like, oh, an email pings, I want to answer it and satisfy it. But no, I had to start establishing boundaries that I answer emails at these certain times each day, and then if it doesn't get answered at that time during that day, it will get answered the next day. And it's just a boundary. And it's something that I'm constantly working through. But I think it's something that we often don't consider, and we don't communicate that. And so something that I use in this case around email that I found from a colleague, which I thought was really great, is that they have a little blurb at the bottom of their signature line that says how they respond to email. And it says, I'll respond to your email within 48 hours upon receipt. That's fair. Like, it establishes the boundary. And many of us don't have it, and we don't communicate it. And because of that, we can't get to the clear goal that we've set. So now that you see how these vocabulary words are in place, Now what we're going to do is actually take this plan and we're going to turn it into a actionable strategy, because there's nothing worse than having a plan, knowing what we need to do to establish clarity, to create the boundaries, and to communicate. But let's think through what our plan might look like. And again, if this is resonating with you, let me know in the comments in terms of what your takeaway is from today's episode. And I want us to leave here this episode with an action plan. And if you know another student who could benefit from this, don't be selfish. Send this video out. Send it to someone who could benefit from having this actionable strategy as well. And so let's think through what your action plan is going to look like. First things first is that your first action plan is you're going to do a goal audit. You're going to audit your goal, because right now you have to figure out, you're going to have a number of tasks that you can get done during this break. I want you to figure out what is the number one task that if you accomplish would get you one step closer to finishing your dissertation. And so it might take a little bit of second of just like doodling down, like in terms of brainstorming, but you want to get to the goal that's going to get you to the finish line. And it might be finishing that chapter. It might be going back to review any feedback that you've gotten from your committee and handling that feedback first. Like whatever it is, you want to get that done first and set that as your target. It might be finishing chapter 3. I don't know what it is for you. You have to figure out what that is. And this is something that we do in our velocity coaching program to help our clients navigate this. But you have to figure out what is that goal. Then what I want you to do is, now what we're going to do is do a calendar block. I watched Mel Robbins' podcast, right? And I don't know if you all watch the podcast. Mel interviews like sensational folks who like done great things in their fields and industries, have great ideas. And she was interviewing this person who was a productivity expert. And this is something I started to implement in my own calendar. It's hard at first to do it because it's very different, but I started to time block my calendar. And so what that looked like is I had time blocks where I did certain tasks. Like for instance, when I record episodes like this, I have a time block on my calendar on Thursdays from 1 to 3 p.m. where I actually record episodes when I have to do any pre-recording, or I'm doing podcast episodes, like anything like content related, I do in that 2-hour block. And again, it creates this boundary. But what it might look like for you is to, and what I learned from this professor who was talking about this, is like first figuring out and jotting down what is my to-do list, right? What are all the priorities and things I have to do? And then creating your time block. So if my day looks like, 9 to 11 is my writing block, that's going to be put on my calendar. And then what you're going to start doing is assigning those tasks to that writing block. So, you have 9 to 11 available to write. What it might look like is, hey, I'm going to do my revisions from my committee. It's probably going to take me about an hour and a half to do. So maybe that writing block on Monday is only dedicated, an hour and a half of it is dedicated to addressing the feedback from my committee. This part was a game changer. Something I've implemented, I really like, is that you're taking the task from your to-do list, but then also assigning a time to it. And one thing I've learned, if you're going to execute and implement this, is that at first it may be difficult and you may underestimate the time. Like you might say, I can get that done in 30 minutes, recognize it, and you learn that it takes you an hour to do. And so that's something I've started to recognize in my own pattern of work, is that it takes me longer to do things. So I don't assign as many tasks. And it will feel like you're not productive. But again, you're getting your goal accomplished in a time frame that makes sense, in a time frame that you don't burn out. So again, this is an important strategy that you can implement, in terms to execute the plans that we have talked about. And then lastly, you're going to work in another strategy, you're going to execute work sprints. So as I mentioned, you're going to take what you have, the task that you have to do, and assign it to your calendar. And then you're going to work in sprints. I've started to execute this because, again, on that podcast I saw with Mel Robbins, and I forget the person's name, so excuse me, is a Georgetown professor who wrote a book called Slow Productivity. And what he talked about was this idea that if you're trying to, regain your focus, is that you set your timer for 20 minutes and you focus on one particular task. However, if you get off task at any point during that 20 minutes, you reset your timer. And your goal is to do this 2 weeks straight if you're trying to get a task for 20 minutes. And then from there, he says to go up to 30 minutes. And so I'm working on that myself in my own practice to implement the strategy, because I'm always like, how do I refocus and stay focused longer? And this is something I've learned from watching this particular podcast episode. And I think it's a helpful strategy. But we're going to start working in sprints. So now that we know that, hey, I may have a 90-minute block where I'm going to work on this particular task, handling feedback from the committee. And that's all I'm going to do. What that is going to need for you to do is remove distractions. The distractions, because again, I'm no different. Like, I go through the same things that you all go through, and I have to find ways to still remain productive and do the things I need to get done. A couple of the strategies I've implemented that I'll just share with you that might be helpful is that, and this was a hard one, is my phone. My phone was a serious distraction. So I put it on do not disturb, face down. If you find that even that is, and this, what happened in my first writing block when I tried this for the 20-minute focus time is that at minute 4, it was like 4 minutes and 16 seconds into my first 20-minute block. I went down to my desk and I picked up my phone. It was just that easy because it was right there. What I started to then do from there is then I removed my phone. I put my phone actually on my bookcase behind me because I don't feel like having to walk back there to go get it. And so you have to figure out what your distraction is. Mine is my phone. The other one is like actually closing out all of my email browsers, because I do sometimes need to go on the browser to find something related to my task. But I noticed that if my email browser is up, I would easily just click, oh, I got a new email. Let me see what this is about. And I found that eliminating that distraction allowed me to engage in that work sprint. And then what I found out is that I'm starting to get faster and faster of getting tasks done because I'm actually focused on getting that one particular task completed in totality. Because nothing worse than having a bunch of tasks just out there, lingering. And so again, I hope this is helpful as a way to think through and execute this plan. So remember, we're going to, have clarity around what our goal is. We're going to actually set boundaries for what we're trying to do. And then we're going to communicate those boundaries in order to execute our plan here, which we're going to first set a goal audit, right? Figure out what are all of our goals and our tasks and what's our number one. And we're going to start there first. Then we're going to calendar block our time so that we know that, all right, this particular time is my dedicated time for my dissertation during this break. And then we're going to work in sprints. We're going to take our to-do list from our goal audit. We're going to assign those goals to a particular time frame that we're going to do each day in order to help us execute. I promise you, if you execute and implement this, there'll be no reason why you can't finish your dissertation in 1 year or less. This is literally the thing that's transforming our students that are in our Velocity coaching program from someone who has struggled with a particular chapter, struggled in the process, to being done within 1 year. And so if this is something that where you want to implement this plan, but you want someone to support you and guide you along the side, what I would love for you to do is learn about our Velocity coaching program. And you can go to www.velocitydissertation.com, or you can scan the QR code that is here on your screen, because we want to help you all get to the finish line and get to the finish line quickly. And so make sure that you don't sit around ABD because you don't have the support and strategy that you need to execute. We have that covered for you in our Velocity coaching program, and we would love to help you get to the next phase in this process, because there's so many things that you can do with the doctorate. And I don't want to see like 47% of doctoral students who start a program and do not finish. So if that is you, click you can scan the QR code that's here on your screen, go to www.velocitydissertation.com to learn more and apply to work with us. It's a quick application. It'll take you less than 5 minutes to complete. And then we will get on the call and you can talk with Renee on our team and co-owner of Done Dissertation to learn more about the program and how we can help get you to the finish line. Again, I hope this episode was helpful for you. I wish you all a great holiday break. Implement the strategies. And until next time, I wish you a done dissertation. Take care.